This is Weather or Not.
All right, it is Thursday. Welcome into the Thursday edition of Weather or Not. Kind of a cool and damp Thursday, but not really complaining a lot.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't had many days like this, especially with the cooler temperatures and some much needed rain. Obviously, it's not going to be inches of rain, but enough light rain to kind of give that gloomy feel.
Yeah, kind of a classic cool, damp November day. I love it. That's what we're going to start off with here with our three things, and we are going to see those showers coming to an end, transitioning quickly into a cool fall weekend and some awfully chilly nights coming up as we head into the weekend as well.
Yeah, those weekend temperatures, we're going to be talking about 40s coming in for those nights. But first, let's talk about that rain that's been supplying once again some of those showers today. Pretty unique little setup here. Cold front's going to be coming through, and not to be surprised as we go through for the overnight, that cold front will push through. Not going to bring a big drop in our temperatures, but going to keep us consistent. And notice offshore, a little developing low pressure from that cold front. Going to keep some showers off over the Atlantic, and you'll notice for Friday, all of our winds going to be out of the north. That will allow for the cooler temperatures that sets up for that weekend forecast.
Yeah, interesting thing about that area of low pressure that kind of fires up from our little shower maker today. That thing really cranks off the Outer Banks of North Carolina. They're probably going to end up with some 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts there coming into tonight, into tomorrow morning. It does turn gusty for us heading into the day tomorrow, but we are back into sunshine for Friday, and that sunshine continues as we head into the weekend and just kind of a seasonable weekend. Temperatures into the 60s by day, 40s by night, and still holding on. I think we see some of those upper 30s showing up inland, especially Saturday night into early Sunday morning.
It certainly feels good to say that no 80s in a weekend forecast for once. Feels like we're finally trying to turn the corner. Let's go ahead though, shall we?
Yeah.
And talk about our temperatures extremes, because it could be a lot worse as we take you coast to coast here.
Yeah, for sure. The extremes, again, my favorite one. I got to put on my glasses here because I can't see. I love the cold one. Peter Sinks, Utah. Have we done Peter Sinks
We have
yet?
done Peter Sinks because I thought it said Peter Stinks at the very first time. I do remember that. And then, of course, Shaka, right?
Yep, Rio Grande Village.
94 degrees. Of course, we're talking about the colder air coming through. That colder air pivoted from California the other day, now over to Utah. And yeah, that's going to be trying to work its way through the country. Let's talk about for our area, though, as we go into your Friday. Like we talked about, those showers move offshore and high pressure slowly begins to build. That's going to build in all the way through the Friday and into that weekend forecast.
Yeah, giving us that nice clear forecast and maintaining the cool weather. We're not going to see a big drop behind the system. It just kind of helps to reinforce those cooler temperatures here across the Carolinas into the 60s as we work our way through the day on Friday. 70s and 80s confined down there towards South Florida. Into the Northeast we go. Some active weather there across down east Maine. Otherwise, the rest of the Northeast and New England looking pretty good. Kind of gloomy there from western PA into western New York. Overall, though, nothing too out of the ordinary.
Yeah, you'll notice temperature-wise, we're talking 50s across Worcester, also 50 there in Albany, 49 in Syracuse, and yeah, even still a milder 50. I say mild because 50 for them, that's pretty pleasant here for this time of year. And of course, we've been talking about how the Northeast has been searching for rain. The next 7 days looking pretty quiet as well. Let's take you to some new video here. At least 2 brush fires broke out in the upper Manhattan Park. Manhattan.
That's crazy. I had to do a double take. Wait, like Manhattan, like New York City, Manhattan? Yeah. Fires there just a few blocks south of that same park, though. We had another brush fire that was luckily gotten under control yesterday afternoon. That blaze broke out around 2:30. FDNY receiving reports of smoke coming from that park, and nearly 4 dozen fire personnel responded to the scene to battle those flames in that large kind of brushy area. And again, this is right in Manhattan in New York City. That's crazy.
When you're talking about, it's weird to see skyscrapers and also some of those taller buildings with smoke off in the distance. Certainly, like that video right there.
Yeah.
Does look crazy. It's also been dry, especially across portions out to the west. Let's take you and continue with coast to coast. We'll go out to the Midwest. Thankfully, they've had some rain this week to help. And you'll notice as we go into that Friday, nothing to worry about. Temperature-wise, looking pretty steady there in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, 53 in Minneapolis for Friday, 62 in Kansas City. Denver topping out at 55 for tomorrow afternoon. Into the Southwest, there ain't nothing happening. Rio Grande Village, let me guess, it's going to be sunny and 90s again.
It will Rio Grande show up again on the temperature extreme for tomorrow. There's a good bet for it. You'll notice also clear skies. It's going to allow those temperatures to heat up. And as we go into your Friday, yeah, look at these 80s coming in. 83 there in Laredo, 80 in Corpus Christi. And you get some 50s and 60s mixed in. I thought that said taco up there, over there in New Mexico.
You're just hungry. That's
I'm just hungry.
That's Taos, New Mexico. All right, a little bit of active weather here as we take you into the West Coast. We've got some snow, mountain snow, mainly working its way through southern Idaho into parts of Nevada. That may dive its way south, even some snow for the Sierra Mountains there in central California. Some of that eventually going to work its way into areas around Salt Lake City, up into parts of Idaho, Pocatello, up to West Yellowstone, Jackson, Wyoming, likely picking up a little bit of that snow as we head into the day on Friday with temperatures pretty seasonable.
Yeah, pretty seasonable. We're talking 40s out there. You'll notice 48 there as you go into Boise, 43 as you go into portions there across Idaho. And how about up in Montana? Not a bad one. They'll take the 40s all day long as we go into the forecast. So that's a look at your coast to coast. Of course, still pretty busy here as we talk about the tropics, still keeping an eye on Tropical Depression 19. Depending on when you're watching this, could already be Tropical Storm Sarah. That's expected to happen later today with this cluster of storms.
Yeah, big old ugly cluster of storms down there. It's not necessarily strong, but it's big. And the big issue with this is going to be some extremely heavy rainfall, especially across parts of Nicaragua. How about 30 inches of rain possible there? Because this is really not going to be in a hurry to move much as we head through today, tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday. Finally, potentially, at least the remnants getting into the southern Gulf of Mexico as we head into early next week. Good news is, though, we've actually seen kind of a shift in the last 24 to 36 hours about any potential U.S. impacts from this, looking a bit less likely now.
And it's all because of the track. We were talking about this yesterday. Everything was kind of saying, hey, could it shoot the gap into the Gulf? It's been shifting west, even from this morning's update. You'll notice now forecast to become a depression over top of the Yucatan Peninsula. And then by the time it goes into your Tuesday, that's going to be something that we would need to watch. Of course, could redevelop into something in the Gulf. We'll need to keep an eye on that. But the big concern early on, and while everyone was talking about could this be a hurricane working into the Gulf, is the water temperatures alone, Jamie.
Yeah, already. Yeah, still holding on at 80 to 85 degrees. So here's the quick science lesson. To get a tropical storm or hurricane to form, you have to have water temperatures of at least 80 degrees. And on this map, if you see red, well, that's 80 or above, closing in on 85 there across most of the Caribbean. So certainly warm enough down there to support the development of what will become Sarah. But again, it is thankfully that land interaction that is going to pose good news, at least for the U.S. is how it looks right now. I love to see always the kind of cool things that show up on these maps, including the Gulf Stream. You can see that little finger of warm water. That's the Gulf Stream there off the Carolina coast and off the coast of Florida.
Yeah, so let's take a how this could look over the next 7 days, and we're going to take this out probably further than what you've seen for us, at least during our newscast. Let's go ahead and show you how it meanders. You'll notice, like Jamie said, basically sitting there dumping rain, and now look how far west that track goes. And what we can tell is, when you get a weakening system like that, look how much larger the consistency in the models are. There will be a turn somewhere to the northeast. Question is it even a depression or a storm at that point? It definitely looks weaker and something we'll have to watch probably by the middle of the end of next week, but looking a lot better when it comes to impacts for the United States as of now.
Yeah, and you can see some of those models take it towards Florida, some even up through Georgia, and we got one or two at us here in the Carolinas. That's not showing a hurricane coming at us. I think if anything at this point, what may be more likely scenario is just some remnant tropical moisture that tries to blow its way into our area. So that is certainly something we'll keep an eye on as we head into the middle part of next week. Looks like a more active weather pattern either way as we head into the middle part of next week here across the Carolinas and the eastern half of the U.S. But with all the talk of tropics, we had a chance to sit down and talk to one of our favorite hurricane chasers, Josh Morgerman.
Yeah, we like to call him Hurricane Man, Cyclone. If you follow him on Twitter, you got to sit down with him and really have a conversation. Take a listen.
And then cut to peak season, the Atlantic was just a funeral parlor. There was nothing going on. And folks were like, wow, this season's a bust seems like there's not going to be really much action. And just when folks were kind of nailing the lid on the coffin for the season, we had this huge late season burst with these big epic impacts, Helene and Milton. And now we're into November and we're looking at another potential Gulf hurricane. So I would say, yeah, a roller coaster. Just every time you thought you understood what was going on, there was a plot twist.
Oh, I just love what
he is so great. Love talking to him. We've got that entire interview coming up on today's episode of Are You Serious? Our podcast. If you haven't checked it out, yeah, check it out. It's a good one. It's a fun one. We talk to Josh, talk about hurricane season, and we also talk about some other fun stuff.
Yeah, we've been busy.
All over the place.
Yeah, we're all over the place for sure. Let's continue, shall we? And take it what I think may become one of my favorite segments.
Yeah,
Today
it
in
is.
Weather history. We're cool and, dreary today, but how about these temperatures on this day in 2013?
Yeah, look at those 20s, all record cold temperatures down to 23 in Myrtle Beach. That would be a cold morning for January, much less the middle part of November. And if you were with us yesterday, we were talking about on November 12th, the first earliest ever snowflakes recorded in Myrtle Beach and Lumberton and Florence and Wilmington. Well, the same system that brought those flurries also delivered record cold, so kind of makes sense there.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. And also, could you imagine 23 degrees November? Certainly a shock to the system.
It happens every once in a while, yeah. I'm ready for it.
Me and you both. Can we fast forward as we go into your forecast? Let's go ahead and talk about See It, Snap It, Send It. Our favorite photos that you send in. Of course, you're the eyes out there. How about the moon? And a halo coming in from William here.
Yeah, I always love to see that ring around the moon, or you can also have a ring around the sun, depending on the time of the day. Yeah, beautiful halo out there. We had that Wednesday night as the clouds were beginning to thicken up ahead of today's rainmaker. Those halos are formed by really high, thin ice crystals in those very high, thin cirrus clouds. The moonlight or the sunlight refracts off of those, and you get that beautiful halo.
William, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Let's take it to our next See It, Snap It, Send It, and a familiar one as well. Tina coming in here. Beautiful view as you go, and I love when you can get those clouds moving in or moving out, and you can get the sun underneath reflecting some of the colors. You get the purples, you get the orange. Certainly a beautiful view there. And we want to remind you, if you want to be like William or Tina, maybe you want to end up here on Whether or Not, you can send your favorite photos to us. Remember, we like to say we're here working in the studio. We can't always see everything that happens, but you can. Just scan this QR code, download the First Alert Weather app, and go to the very bottom. There's a Submit a Photo tab, and I will tell you, we're getting a lot more photos. I don't know if that's because of Whether or Not or the weather or the photography, but thank you. Big thank you out there.
Yeah, love seeing those. We're already working ahead on tomorrow's show, getting us ready for the weekend, a bunch of events going on around town, and an update on what's going on, obviously, with the tropics and our next rainmaker, and maybe a real big cool down coming up late next week.
There's the tease that I was waiting for.
Yeah.
Maybe some 50s for highs.
Bring it.
That's all we'll say. Also, a brand new Friday happy hour coming to you for tomorrow. Thanks for joining us as always. We'll talk to you soon, and stay updated with us on that WNBF First Alert Weather app.